He saw her as just another person to bully on a dark road, another target for his smirk and his badge. What he didn't know was that he wasn't just pulling over a citizen. He was pulling over the very system he thought he could control, and in less than 24 hours, it was all going to come crashing down. It all started with a simple traffic stop. The predator on patrol. Officer. Mark Miller loved the late shift. When the city lights streaked across his windshield, the grit and grime of Northwood melted away, and it felt like a stage set just for him. The darkness wasn't empty, it was his arena. For 10 years, this was his world. He joined the force with some vague, dusty idea of protecting and serving, but a decade of cynicism had curdled it into something else. He didn't see citizens anymore. He saw suspects. This is Tracelight Stories, where every twist shines a light on truth. Subscribe now. Hit the like button and comments below. What would you have done? His partners called him Bulldog for a reason. Once he locked his jaws on something, he didn't let go. He saw anything less than immediate, unquestioning obedience as a personal insult, and he did not handle insults well. Tonight was no different. He was rolling solo, which he preferred. No partner to play the good cop or urge restraint. Just him, his cruiser, and a city full of shadows to hunt. He was nursing the bitter end of a diner coffee when he spotted it. A respectable navy blue sedan making a right turn. The turn was smooth, almost perfect. But Miller's eyes were trained to find the flaw. The car didn't make a full, 3-second, textbook stop. It was a rolling stop. 99 cops would have let it go. Miller wasn't one of them. This wasn't a traffic violation. It was an imperfection, an opportunity. He flipped on the lights. The lurid wash of red and blue flooded the street. The sedan signaled and pulled over perfectly. A compliant stop. For a second, Miller felt a flash of disappointment. He preferred a little fight. It made the wind feel better. He ran the plate. Clean. Registered to a Serenity Haze, with an address in the nice part of town. No priors. Too clean. People with clean records were often the best at hiding things. He took his time getting out, letting the driver's anxiety cook. He approached the passenger side, his hand resting on his service weapon out of habit, a subtle reminder of who held all the power. The woman behind the wheel wasn't what he expected. She was black, maybe in her late 40s, with a face that was calm and composed. She wore a simple, elegant blazer, and her hair was styled in neat locks. Her window was already down. Her hands were on the wheel at 10 and 2. She wasn't fidgeting. She wasn't panicking. She was just waiting. Her calm felt like a challenge. "Good evening, ma'am," Miller started, using his low, gravelly official business voice. "You know why I pulled you over?" She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "I have a few ideas, officer, but I'd prefer you just tell me." Her voice was as steady as her gaze, educated, clear, and missing the tremor of fear he was used to hearing. "Strike one. You rolled right through that stop sign back there," he said, pointing over his shoulder. "In a hurry." "I was on my way home from my office," she replied evenly. "I'm quite certain I stopped, but if you saw it differently, I'll accept your judgment." No argument, no begging. This was all wrong. Her easy acceptance felt almost dismissive, like a ticket was just a tiny annoyance. He felt an irrational itch to push, to find a crack in that serene facade. "License, registration, and proof of insurance, please," he demanded, his voice a little sharper. She nodded. "Of course, officer. They're in my glove compartment. I'm going to reach over now, very slowly, to get them." She narrated her movements, a technique people are taught to de-escalate. To Miller, it sounded like she was handling him. He watched her lean over. His eyes narrowed. She passed him a small leather portfolio. He snatched the documents. "Serenity Haze. This address correct?" "Yes." "What kind of office keeps you working this late?" He fished, probing for a weakness. "I'm an attorney," she said simply. "Long hours come with the territory." An attorney. Of course. A smug little smile touched Miller's lips. He loved putting lawyers in their place, reminding them that on the street, his badge beat their degree every single time. An attorney, huh? He said, dragging out the words. Then you of all people should know better than to run stop signs. As I said, I believe I stopped, she replied, her voice still infuriatingly calm. You have my documents. Are you writing me a citation, officer? She was trying to control the pace. Big mistake. He was the one who decided when this was over. I'll be the one asking questions, he snapped. I smell something. You have anything illegal in the vehicle? It was a lie. The air smelled of humid asphalt and the clean leather of her car. It was a classic, worn-out pretext for a search, but it usually worked. For the first time, something flickered across Serenity Hayes' face. Not fear. It was disappointment. A deep, weary disappointment. No, officer, she said, her voice dropping slightly. I don't have anything illegal in my vehicle. You have no probable cause for a search. Are you refusing to cooperate, Miss Hayes? He asked, his voice dangerously soft. The bulldog had its teeth in. I'm not refusing to cooperate. I am asserting my Fourth Amendment rights, she stated, her gaze locked on his. If you wish to search my car, you'll need a warrant. This was it, the confrontation he'd been pushing for. Her composure, her knowledge of the law. It all felt like a personal insult. A slow, cold smirk spread across Miller's face. It was the look he used when he knew he had someone trapped. Your Fourth Amendment rights, he chuckled, a harsh, ugly sound. That's cute. But out here on my street, the only thing that matters is my safety. And your attitude is making me feel very unsafe. He leaned in close. So, you're going to step out of the car. I'm going to conduct a search. And if you give me any more problems, I'm adding resisting arrest to the ticket. Understand? Serenity Hayes held her gaze. Officer, she said, her voice laced with a sadness he mistook for surrender. I would strongly advise you to reconsider. Is that a threat? He barked, feigning outrage. No, officer. I'm giving you one last chance to de-escalate a situation you created. That was it. He was the law, and she was treating him like a child. That's it, he snarled. You're under arrest. For what? She asked, a genuine note of disbelief in her voice. Obstruction. We'll figure it out later, he said, the smirk returning. He yanked her car door open with a screech. Hands behind your back. With a sigh that carried the weight of 1,000 similar injustices, she stepped out of the car. She turned and placed her hands behind her back, dignified even now. As he clicked the cold steel of the handcuffs around her wrists, he leaned in and whispered, You see, counselor? Out here, I'm the judge and jury, and you just lost. He saw his reflection in the car window, a cop towering over a handcuffed woman. He had won. He had broken her. He had no idea he wasn't closing a case. He was just creating the star witness for his own trial. The arrogance of morning. The next morning, Miller woke up feeling like a king. He replayed the memory of Serenity Hayes' calm finally cracking, and it was deeply satisfying. He'd shown that lawyer what real power was. He'd booked her on obstructing governmental administration and resisting arrest. The charges were flimsy, but they didn't have to stick. The point was the process, the humiliation, the night in a holding cell. That was the real punishment. His report was a work of art. He painted Hayes as argumentative and belligerent. He wrote that he'd smelled a strong chemical odor, giving him a reason to search. The search found nothing, of course, but he left that part out. It was all lies, but it was his word against hers, and he knew whose word the system was built to trust. Whistling, he drove to the courthouse. He walked into Courtroom 3B, a familiar scent of stale coffee and old paper in the air. He scanned the defendants' benches, looking for Serenity Hayes. He couldn't wait to see the defeated look on her face, to give her a little nod that said, I told you so. But she wasn't there. He frowned. He checked the docket on the wall. The People versus Serenity Hayes. Arraignment. 9:30 a.m. It was 9:25. He shrugged and took a seat near the front. He spotted the prosecutor, a young gun named Evans, who gave him a grim, dismissive nod. Weird. The court bailiff, Dave, walked by. "Morning, Miller," he grunted. "Morning, Dave. Slow day." Dave just shook his head. "Not today, son. Today's gonna be a weird one." Miller felt a prickle of unease. The whole room felt tense, charged. He noticed a couple of suits in the back of the room. Detectives. From Internal Affairs. Their presence was a cold weight in the air. What were they doing here? It had to be for another case. It had to be. At 9:30 on the dot, the bailiff called out, "All rise. The court of the Honorable Judge Evelyn Reed is now in session." Everyone stood. Miller felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his gut. Judge Reed was tough but fair. As she took the bench, the courtroom doors opened again, and in walked Serenity Hayes. She wasn't in handcuffs. She was dressed in the same elegant blazer from last night. She didn't look at him. She walked right past the defendant's area and took a seat directly behind the prosecutor's table. The blood drained from Miller's face. Prosecutor Evans immediately leaned over and began speaking with her in hushed, deferential tones. It couldn't be. He looked over at the bailiff, who was now staring right at him with an expression that looked a lot like pity. He looked at the IAD detectives, who were now watching him, and only him. They all knew. Everyone knew. He was the only one who had walked in blind. A strangled noise escaped his throat. What had he done? Who was she? Judge Reed banged her gavel. "First matter of business this morning," she announced, looking at a file just handed to her. An immediate arraignment. The People versus Officer Mark Miller. Miller's name echoed in the silent room. His own name. His legs felt like they were about to give out. Prosecutor Evans stood up, his jaw tight. "Your Honor, the District Attorney's Office is filing immediate charges against Officer Mark Miller of the Northwood Police Department for unlawful arrest and official misconduct." Miller stared, completely lost. He felt every eye in the room on him. He was no longer a cop. He was a spectacle. Evans took a deep breath. Furthermore, based on the sworn incident report Officer Miller filed this morning, a report containing numerous, verifiably false statements when compared against his own body camera footage, the DA's office is adding a charge of perjury in the first degree. Body camera footage. The words hit Miller like a punch to the gut. His own camera. He was so high on his own power trip, he'd completely forgotten about the silent, objective witness clipped to his chest. The one that recorded every lie, every sneer, every single thing he did. It was never his word against hers. It was his word against a high-definition video of the truth. He looked from the prosecutor to the woman sitting behind him. Serenity Hayes finally turned her head and met his gaze. There was no malice in her eyes. Just that same, steady calm from last night. But now he understood it. It wasn't the calm of a citizen. It was the calm of someone who wields a different kind of power. He told her that on his street. He was the judge. He was about to find out just how wrong he was. Section 3. The verdict of consequence. The courtroom was dead silent. Miller stood frozen as Prosecutor Evans laid out the case against him. Unlawful arrest. Official misconduct. Perjury. The words dismantled the world he had built for himself over 10 years. He looked around for an ally, but every other cop in the room was avoiding his eyes, creating a space around him. He was no longer part of the pack. He was being cast out. Judge Reed looked down from the bench, her expression stern. But it was Evans who delivered the final, devastating blow. "Your Honor," the prosecutor said, his voice ringing with authority. "These charges are based on irrefutable evidence from the defendant's own body camera, and they stem from an incident last night involving a citizen of this community. A citizen who, I must add, happens to be one of our own." Evans gestured behind him. The victim of this unlawful arrest was the Honorable Judge Serenity Hayes. A wave of gasps swept the gallery. A judge. He had arrested a judge. Miller felt like the floor had just dropped out from under him. The smug satisfaction he'd felt just hours ago had curdled into pure, sickening horror. Evans wasn't finished. Officer Miller's report claims he smelled a chemical substance. The body camera audio reveals this was a lie, a pretext for an illegal search. His report claims Judge Hayes was belligerent. The footage shows a woman calmly and correctly asserting her constitutional rights. He arrested her for obstruction after she refused an unlawful order. The prosecutor paused, letting the weight of the facts sink in. He abused his power. He lied in a sworn report. He did this because his ego was bruised by a citizen who refused to be intimidated. It's the very definition of corruption. Evans looked at Judge Reed. Your Honor, given the defendant's flagrant abuse of his position and his willingness to commit perjury, the state requests he be remanded without bail. He is a danger to the very community he swore an oath to protect. Remanded, without bail. The words barely registered. Miller was trapped in a nightmare of his own making. He looked desperately at Judge Reed, then back at Judge Hayes. Her expression hadn't changed. It was still one of profound, weary disappointment. The disappointment of someone who has seen this happen far too many times. Only this time, it happened to her. Judge Reed looked down at Miller, her face a mask of judicial fury. Mr. Miller, the actions described here represent a contemptible betrayal of the public trust. She glanced at the bailiff. Bailiff, take the defendant into custody. Dave, the veteran bailiff, walked up to Miller. Miller, hands behind your back, he said, his voice firm but low. The click of the handcuffs was the same sound Miller had savored the night before. Now, it was the sound of his own downfall. The cold steel on his wrists was a shock. He, Mark Bulldog Miller, was being cuffed in open court. As Dave led him away, he cast one last, desperate look toward Serenity Hayes. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking straight ahead, a pillar of dignity. For her, this wasn't personal. It was procedural. He was just another case to be processed by the system he thought he owned. The heavy door of the holding cell slammed shut, the sound echoing with finality. He thought his badge made him untouchable, but he learned, far too late, that he had just been a bully on a power trip. And on one humid August night, he pulled over the wrong car, angered the wrong woman, and authored his own spectacular ruin. This story is a work of fiction, but the issues of power and accountability are very real. What do you think is the best way to make sure law enforcement is held responsible when they cross the line? Share your thoughts in the comments. The case against Mark Miller became a local sensation. When the body camera footage was released, the public saw his sneering arrogance contrasted with Judge Hayes' unshakable composure. Facing a mountain of undeniable evidence, Miller took a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to perjury and official misconduct. He lost his job, his pension, and was permanently barred from ever working in law enforcement again. His name became a cautionary tale at the police academy, a lesson in what happens when pride and power go unchecked. Judge Hayes never presided over any part of Miller's case, of course, having recused herself as the victim. But her point was made that first morning in court. Her victory wasn't about revenge. It was about reaffirming a simple, crucial principle. The law is for everyone, and no one, especially not those who wear a badge, is above it. The scales of justice, which Miller tried so hard to tip in his own favor, had been balanced in the most personal way imaginable. He learned that true authority isn't taken by force. It's earned through respect. A lesson delivered in the one place he thought he was untouchable, a court of law. This is Tracelight Stories. Don't forget to check out our other stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.